Is it live, Hunter?
Yeah.
Good. Good.
Ready?
Yes.
All rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, you guys, please be mute your mics when you're not on, please. All right, we'll start this public hearing off. We have a SEA 390 public hearing of the Lawrenceburg Federation of Teachers and the Lawrenceburg Community School Corporation. Public testimony will be taken at this hearing pursuant to Indiana Code 20-29-6-1 regarding teacher compensation and collective bargaining. At this time, we would like to ask the public if they would have any comments regarding this public hearing.
Just like to note also for the record that we have Mr. Lorton, who's the union president. He's present here as well. So they're supposed to be represented from their side as well as the school corporation. So just wanted to make sure that we had that noted for the record. No public testimony?
All right, this hearing is closed. All right. Next, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular school board meeting for the September. We're going to start off with the education report, but first, before we do that, we're going to go ahead and take roll call for those that are joining us online. So we have members present. Member Mark Kaniga, Superintendent Carl Gailey, myself, Brian Johnson, Member Bob Miller, and Member Phelan Nance. Online tonight, we've got Board Member Brian Jansen and President Kevin Milan. And then also joining us from the administration, we have Jamie Herbert from Greenville Middle School, Pam Taylor from the administration, and Bill Schneider from Lawrenceburg High School, and Andrea Spaeth, and Tammy Gregory, and school board attorney, Dell Weldon. Excuse me?
You want to ask it just in case you missed anybody?
Yeah, I think that's everybody. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to start this meeting off tonight with the education report. Mr. Schneider will share LHS goals for the 2021 school year. Mr. Schneider.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. First, I want to start out with the first of the three goals that we have dealing with the graduation pathways. We've been working naturally with the graduation pathways for the last couple of years. The present juniors are the last class to go through with the original ISTEP graduation guidelines. So the state has allowed us, like I said, for the last couple of years to work on this so that we're fully prepared to take over and not have two separate ways of graduating, but let them all go into what they consider the new pathways. So we've started with that each year. We have progressed. The first year we started out trying to get as many students as possible, knowing that none of them had any familiarity, but just kind of see where they fit in. And we ended up with double-figure students that could have graduated with the new pathways if so desired. Last year we increased that considerably. Not really trying to advertise it as a way to go, but to try to get our younger children, our freshmen and sophomores, in line with that type of thinking. Because as you know, sophomores, that's the way they will go in the classes after that. So each year we try to develop a more clear-cut pathway. Thank goodness that we do have the one-on-one scheduling appointments with our parents and with the students. So there's the exact time that we can really spend a great deal of that time explaining to the parents what will need to happen if they have questions about it. And then, of course, we have our guidance, trying to spend more time with students explaining the so-called buckets that need to be filled. So what I've done after, on the next slide, what I've done is just to give you some examples of the forms we use. I'm not going to go through each example, as you can see the headings on them, but for our last two for our next two graduating classes, our present juniors and seniors, we do have a form for decision. There they can opt in so that we have a better understanding, so they can opt into the form to let us know, yes, I like the graduation pathway, no, I'd rather stick with the I-step. But really what it does is give us a clear-cut communication with the students to let them know which way they can go. So there's an example of the I-step and graduation pathway decision form. The next couple, and excuse me, I made a couple mistakes. PowerPoint, believe it or not, I know y'all think I'm a tech genius, but PowerPoint's always my cup of tea, but I did repeat one accidentally. But we do have a couple forms here dealing with the community service form, because that is part of one of the buckets dealing with employability, dealing with the service-based learning. Also, we have an employee verification form. That's the one I accidentally repeated. Just to give you an idea that we do have a form that if a child is working, we want this filled out, signed by an employer, and make sure that it meets the criteria for length of time that we would like to see someone doing it. Also, I threw in a couple right at the next two slides before, I'm sorry, Carl, before the colorful one there on that. I slid in just a couple where blacked out the names where you can actually see where students fill it out, what they mark, what we do, how we look for the verification, especially on the employee. It's quite in depth. We ask them to fill in more than just put a yes or no. We want some information about it. Now to the slide that's colorful. This one right there, this is how our guidance, we'll start our meetings in the second 9 weeks of all seniors. We'll sit down on a weekly basis and go over all of our seniors, what they're doing to graduate using one of the two pathways, since this senior class gets that option. How are they filling the buckets if they're using the new graduation pathway? How are they going with the old if they want to go with the I-step guidelines and how to graduate there? So this one is a mixture of giving us information so that we can track each senior. This is just an example of one page without any names of how we will track the seniors starting, like I said, after fall break, so that we know exactly what they need to do, what we can do to encourage them, and how we can make sure they're a part of that graduation rate that we want to continue. So that is the first goal, is our, making sure our new graduation pathways are the way they should be. Does anyone have questions on goal number 1?
Anyway. No, thank you.
Okay. Next, we want to go to our Hope Squad. Our Hope Squad, first of all, I want to make sure that you notice on our goals, I put the first and second because we kind of got 2 goals within a goal. And as everyone knows in the world, we were kind of interrupted last year. We had an excellent start, got off to exactly where we needed to be, started the curriculum, and of course, because of COVID, we fell short on being able to accomplish everything the first year we wanted to. Even though they did continue some things virtually, that was still very difficult to do with the curriculum that we were supposed to have interaction with. But we're going to continue. We're going to take where we are and where we were and continue to try to catch up and get the students up. We have our Hope Squad members back. upperclassmen, and we have our freshmen selected for this year. The second goal within the goal is to start the pilot program, and I'm going to talk about it with some later slides here. I'm going to talk about how we would like to take the teachings and the philosophy of a Hope Squad and spread it to the other buildings by the use of our own Hope Squad. So that will be something that we'll be working on this year. We've already contacted the Grant Us Hope community. That's the foundation that supports our Hope Squad, and we're going to be talking to them. And of course, they do have lower level, such as middle school and elementary type programs that we'll be modeling ours after. So as we go to the next slide, once again, I just wanted to make mention that Hope Squad, Grant Us Hope creates the community's leadership. And also, Hope Squad is a school-based peer-to-peer suicide prevention program. That just wanted to make mention of that so that we all keep in mind exactly what we're after. The next slide talks about the youth and suicide and about being one of the leading causes of death. And we just want to make sure we're there. We're recognizing more and more mental health issues, emotional mental health, and especially with the COVID challenges. It's been very challenging for all, and it's very challenging for our young people. So we're really reaching out. We had a Hope Squad moment today that was very, very good. It was reported correctly. Things are happening. Parents now are on board with the situation today that it would just work like clockwork. We're very, very happy with that situation. I think we're going to get someone some help that otherwise we probably would not have done with that, to be honest. Next, the goal of Hope Squad. The goal of Hope Squad, once again, Hope Squad seeks to reduce self-destruction behavior and youth suicide by training, building, and creating change in school. And that becomes their motto. And why involve students in the next slide is very simply, research has shown that students are the first to know about suicide risk in friends. But tragically, as it says there, they have chosen not to tell an adult. So we're telling it's not only important to identify, but the communication that goes with it. Many times we can see a young person in trouble, or a friend can, and doesn't know how to communicate it. So this has kind of opened the eyes of some people. Earlier I mentioned the objectives of Hope Squad. The next three Hope Squad objectives are to train not only the advisor and the students, but the advisor and our staff. We will also train the staff on how to identify. The next slide talks about Hope Squad objectives to build. Hope Squads will build positive relationships and strong relationships, not only with the teachers and the students with the students, but also hopefully it speaks out into the community. And the third Hope Squad objective on the next slide is Hope Squads will work to change the school culture regarding suicide, to make it something more of a mental health approach to a school system where we all work together as a unit and try to get that there. And also the community perceptions is very, very important. We don't want the usual let's stay quiet about suicide. If we don't say anything, maybe it goes away type of philosophy where we bring it out in the open and talk about it. The next slide just shows some common language, common understanding, and common knowledge. The three common areas that we all want to be involved in and keep the mental health going. The last two slides, the first one deals with middle school fundamentals, year one. So when we do get to the point where we're ready to move into the middle school, these are the 10 phases that we will be talking about and introducing to the middle school. I know both Jamie and Leanne are very excited about the possibility of how this can all approach. I'm excited about how this is all going to work and to see how it will go down through our system. And then the last slide for Hope Squad, second to last slide for Hope Squad deals with the elementary school and the 9 phases there. that they want to do it. I think this will be extremely interesting dealing with how this is all introduced to the younger students. And of course, we're going to have the foundation grant us hope behind us the whole way. They are the forerunners. They are the ones that know how to do this. So we will have hands of experts involved in all this to help us through this situation. And of course, the founder of Hope Squad himself, while it takes an entire village to raise a child, we believe it takes an entire community to save. So that's been their philosophy, and that's something that we want to make sure we're there for everyone. That takes us through the second objective. Does anyone have any questions about Hope Squad?
Any questions? I don't think so, Mr. Snyder.
And the third and last goal of ours is actually what our whole 2019-20 school improvement plan is based on. We are a targeted school. Even though we've been an A-rated school for the last few years, we were targeted in one area, and that is getting our special education population to score better on state testing. So we want to make sure if you're a targeted school, that's something that we want to improve on. So we used all of our professional development days that we could before the COVID hit, and then we still did some interaction with the committees, and I got some information out to the staff to make sure that we continue it. But what we did is use all the data, all our meetings, all the input, saying what would be the best way to really try to bring our special education population to a better chance of having good grades on our assessment and dealing with ISTEP. And in the future, dealing with some of our other testing we're going to be looking at. And it was pretty well after a lot of investigation and nice committee work that some good teaching staff that brought some things forward to us, that we would go with a multi-tiered system of support. Very common. It's not as common as a high school as it is in the lower grades, but it can still be done at the high school level. Especially when we thought we could incorporate our SRT and after-school homework help. So we wanted those to kind of represent tiers of how we were going to get the students more support. And with this, we also wanted to give support to our general and honors level students. And that is, we also developed 2 test prep courses that are taught during the day. And also, we wanted to use the March to Success, which is a free program that helps in national testing such as ACT, SAT, and ASVAB, to name a few. So we were very excited about that. Now, before we go on, I need to preface, as we see the next slide, we can go to the next slide. In this, we started out the school year. We thought long and hard about it and anticipated the loss of instructional time during the day. We saw that our students were going to be given more flexibility in the classroom for cleaning their areas, cleaning their hands. We wanted to have more time for them to go to the restroom rather than having large groups go to the restroom at a time. We just saw that we needed, if we were going to have these type of things, we needed to extend the day. So we took a chance and did away with SRT, which did extend the day and did give us some precious minutes each period. But as you know earlier from my goals that we wanted to do, SRT was going to be a valuable part of that goal. So that's what we were kind of giving up. And how are we going to do it just with after school and some other things? So we were going to start building it in. Well, it didn't take long for us to see that after we got into school, that this time with the new attendance regulations we were trying to do, the cleaning, with a large number of virtual students that we had, we saw that not as much time was taken out of the classroom as we thought. And instantly, we wanted to bring SRT back. It worked better for our middle school students. It worked better for our school improvement plan at the time that I really kind of finished up, just putting the fine sandpaper tunes to it, get ready to send it to the state. I was worried I was going to have to redo large portions of it, get the committee back together because we weren't able to use our SRT the way we wanted to. So after communicating with Mr. Galen, it was easy to see that we needed to get back to SRT. So this is the letter to the teachers. I just wanted to give you an example of why we wanted to go back to SRT, what we were going to look for, why we were going back to our plans that we worked so hard the previous year to get together and having teachers work in teams. And now we can even establish a new team, and that is for virtual students. So, and another team that worked for our Plato students, let alone teams that can work together for our in-person students. So it actually gave us a chance. So we put together this little memo out to the teachers, and it shows you there some of the expectations we want, some of the things we want the teachers to get in mind, some of the things that we wanted them to do and the reasoning behind. Let's go back to SRT and let's go back to our school improvement plan. The same thing happened on the next couple slides. And once again, my PowerPoint is always so wonderful. Carl, if you actually go to the next slide, it starts at the top where it says Bell schedule changes. This is a letter that went out to the parents and students. And in this letter, I tried to design not only the reason why we wanted to go back to a Bell schedule that incorporated SRT, I also wanted them to understand why we were doing it and what we could offer the child. So this is the first page of that letter to the parents and students. And then it goes to the next one, which is actually the previous slide. The previous one, I'm sorry, Carl. That goes to the second, where I just gave new goals for a year for this time also. Because I wanted them to incorporate new goals, because at the time of last year working, we did not incorporate anything about virtual students that are on Google Meets and virtual students are in Plato. So we were starting to get quite a few calls from parents going, do you have anything set up where you can spend individual time with virtual students, whether they're doing Plato or Google Meets? So this gave us a perfect opportunity to say, yes, we did. We'll reestablish SRT and have it back. And believe it or not, which anytime you thrust upon a whole community, after you've been in school for a couple weeks and say, hey, we're going to change the Bell schedule, we're going to add this to it, we're going to do whatever. To be honest with you, I did not have one complaint from any student, any community member. Didn't have one parent call me up and say, what are you doing? In fact, we got quite a few compliments, especially from students saying, thank goodness you brought it back. This gave us time for extra help, for organization, for nothing else to get some homework done, but it gave us some time built in that we think is very much needed. And we've always got strong comments about SRT, so I'm glad it worked out for the best. And the very last page that I've got here, on the very last slide, just is the three tiers that we modeled of what we're after, and the different things that we want to try to do in our support system. But what we're doing at this point in time is we've got a constant, one of the things that we do with our guidance now, especially while we still have three, is we're doing a lot of communication, a lot of grade checks, but so are the teachers in turning information in to where they need it. And the teachers are a valuable part of this. Guidance can't do it all. So with the teachers' input, we're keeping track of the students that need the help. We're basing this on our NWEA scores. We're going to continue to monitor those with those tests and assessments. But at the same time, our everyday student grades that they're in, we are now able to assign them where they need to go in SRT to get help. We are able to say, if that's not enough, you're going to stay after school in our homework help program. And we've been able to isolate and do that, once again, without any commotion from the community, like why my child's staying later. So we're actually seeing a nice adaptation from the community to this extra support and help. So we'll see how it works out with the data later. Hopefully this will be able to show something that shows progress, that shows growth, and that we can continue. And I think it's a better utilization of time, especially in SRT. Some people ask, why do we put the payers together? Well, first of all, with the number of virtual students we have out, and we do still give incentive to our juniors and seniors. If they're on track for graduation, if they're making good grades, then they fall in that overall tier of students that are doing what they need to be doing, and their growth is great. So they have the opportunity not to be involved in SRT. We only want the students in SRT that are going to gain some from the students, and the student and teachers can work with them. That gives us smaller groups to work with where we can isolate them. And what I like about the teachers working in pairs is while one teacher or both teachers are working with students, if one teacher can work with a smaller group, and then maybe the other teacher can do communication with the parent at home over what step we would like to take now. They're in SRT, we'd like to go further with this. We'd like for them to stay after school and get more one-on-one help. So we think it's going to encourage teachers to have time to communicate, do more grade monitoring, and of course we're keeping a close eye on that to make sure that that's the direction we want to go with that. So that's something new for us. So I'm anxious to see after one full year, even though we got a lot of virtual students, we'll still have enough data from our in-person, and we'll have enough data, I'm hoping, from our virtual students getting help, both in Plato, during SRT after school, or our Google Meet students get the same type of ability to come in after school and get help. Any questions on that?
Any questions from Mr. Snyder? I think we're good, Mr. Snyder. Thank you for your time.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll move on. Mr. Gailey will recognize staff and students on achievements and accomplishments. Mr. Gailey.
Just a couple to share. I wanted to share that back at the beginning of August, I received an email from a parent from Scottsburg. We had a football scrimmage against them, and they had shared with me in an email, as parent of a senior playing football, we would like to point out a few things that we noticed during our scrimmage on Saturday. Your coaching staff and players were completely professional. We definitely know how well the program Lawrenceburg runs, but with that being said, the team is humble. We have played teams not nearly as good who seem to struggle with professionalism on and off the field. We'd like to commend the coaching staff and players for a job well done. Thank you for participating in the scrimmage and being a class act. So I wanted to share that. Also received an email today and want to recognize one of our teachers, Jennifer Hannigan. She works in the libraries at Lawrenceburg Primary School and Central Elementary School, and she has been participating in some professional development in computer science. And it's through IU's Luddy School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering, and they created a program called Indiana Computes. And it's a computer science professional development program, and it's designed to deliver computer science teacher training to our teachers. And to date, Mrs. Hannigan has completed 4 curriculum units in problem solving and programming, and also other areas such as robotics, online computer science, instruction, data analysis, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, computer science assessment, computer science cross-disciplinary instruction, or other areas that she'll participate in as well. So they wanted to just share some email about her professional development, so I wanted to commend her for participating in professional development and bringing those skills back to our students here at Lawrenceburg. And I just overall just want to continue to commend, we've been in school for over a month now. I want to continue to commend all of our staff in all areas for just the hard work that they provided here for the start of the school year. That's all I got right now.
Thank you, Mr. Gailey. All right, with that, we're going to move on to financial items. We'll start, Ms. Taylor, if you're available now. We're going to start off with the fund report, including the cafeteria fund balance. This is informational only. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of discussion here. So, Ms. Taylor.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Just going
Pam. Pam, are you able to either talk more directly into your mic or something? It's kind of breaking in and out as you talk.
Okay, as close as I can. I did transfer the $90,000 that you approved using from the CARES grant to support food service. That was done in September, so that will not show up on this budget report you have.
She said,
As of
Pam, there's still,
I have a hard time to hear you.
she's saying that she took the $90,000, she's transferred it in September, but that's why it's not showing up on here because this is as of the end of August. So September, she transferred the $90,000 approved CARES money into the food service account, the school lunch fund account. Okay? Go ahead, Pam. You'll have to go one phrase at a time because it's still kind of not as clear.
All right, sorry. We are also expecting about $33,000 from the state for reimbursement of our August expenses. So that's good. I did also
So
point
one
out
minute, hang on, wait. So there's a transfer. So one of the things that you'll notice also in the school lunch fund that I've shared my explanation is that we've not received our reimbursement yet for August. So she had just shared, we're anticipating a reimbursement of $32,766 is the reimbursement we're anticipating in the school lunch fund for August as well. Okay, go ahead, Pam.
And one more item that I apologize to Mr. Bailey for this, I had forgotten, it happened 3 months ago. We did make a payment of a little over $38,000 to 3 longtime employees who retired in June. Now, yes, that's still an expense, but it's certainly not something that will recur. So that, that hurt the balance a little bit until we get it. I think we can come back from that.
So one of the things I didn't factor into any of the costs that I had shared with you guys was part of the explanation going through that she just shared that I wasn't aware of, that in the summertime when we have retirees, we have to pay out for, like if they have sick days that they have saved up, any of the personal days, to pay those out. We had 3 longtime employees retire and we paid out $38,000 to those retirees. So that came from this fund too. So that's $38,000. I didn't even have factored into any of those numbers as well.
But that was included in the negative $93,000 that we given $90,000 for. That was already previously included.
Well, it's in the minus 131 number there. So you take off 90, you're still at 41. Then I got to add in the 3276 reimbursement that we should be getting for August. So we're down to a negative 15. But then you take that 38,000 right here she just shared with me that I didn't know about, and we're actually then in the positive.
So how does retirement days come out of the school lunch fund?
Because because the school lunch fund is a totally self-sustaining fund. So anything related to the school lunch fund should come from the school lunch fund. It should be a standalone program. So any personnel costs, any kind of repairs, any kind of food costs, anything comes from the school lunch fund.
The staff that retired was from the cafeteria.
Yeah, 3 of the 3 food
I was
service.
like, wait a second.
Yeah, we had a cafeteria
I understand.
manager and then 2 others. So they were 3 long-time employees that had built up like a lot of sick
Right.
days and personal days.
I mean, that makes things a whole lot better.
Well, that's 38,000 I didn't have factored. So I appreciate, thanks, man, for sharing that because I didn't have that number there.
So is it possible going forward, by maybe next month or the month after, we can get some kind of cash flow to see when we're going to be in the black? Because if it would
I
have been.
can't hear what Mark's asking, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's asking, will we be able over the next couple months to potentially see a cash flow where we would be in the black within the school lunch fund?
Because without the $90,000 infusion, we're still.
Right, we would still be in the hole by 30-something thousand. Now, looking at, so the question is, will we be able to see that? It's probably gonna take us a couple months because next month, well, this month, the month of September, we're gonna have to look at because we just implemented the free breakfast, free lunch program. So we've got to see how that plays an impact in it as well. The biggest thing that we've got to see that's really going to help us if we can see our numbers grow that are participating in the food program. So we've got to see more participation from students in the program, but the goal should be, we should start to see that, yes, climb over the next couple months. But our big thing is just our numbers. When you're looking at that August numbers, when you have so few of kids that are participating in the program, I mean, we've taken a drop, we're down like to 25% participation because so many kids coming back from the summer started packing. And I think it was a lot of families just were unsure, and it was a little bit of a fear of touching things, how things are being prepared, those. So I think they needed to kind of get a little feel for that. And then hopefully even with the USDA program of allowing free breakfast and lunch, we'll see how that kind of infuses it as well.
So what's the turnaround going to be on this free lunch reimbursement? Because we're fortunate we have no cash balance to cover that, but it's going to be a 3-month turnaround, 6 months, because I'm looking at some of these other funds. I mean, the school grant facility, or the school security grant, that's $91,000. How long are we going to have to wait on our money?
Part of that one though too is us requesting the reimbursement. So the quicker we make the reimbursement, then will help provide lead time for us to get the money. Do we know that? We won't know it until this next month because it'll be the first time doing that. I guess one question would be, Pam, from our summer lunch program, what was the lead time of reimbursement for summer lunch program? Was it still month to month on reimbursement for our summer program?
They typically will reimburse us within 5 business days, and the problem is we can't file the claim until the first day of the following month.
She can't file a claim. So for example, you got to close your books out for August. You can't file until at least the first day of like September. So that's why we couldn't get money from August reimbursement. You got to close down the books for August. And at the earliest you could submit is September 1. So like the earliest we're going to be able to find out for September is October 1st, but then you got to look at least 5 business days. So we still may not have September's. Now we'll be able to give you a number of what that reimbursement will be, like we were able to for August, but it'll still may be off, like just because of the days.
So are they also going to be able to tell you this fund's running out? I mean,
We're basically at the mercy of the feds as to like how long this fund will go. Basically what they shared in it is it will be until December 18th or until the funds run out. We're hoping we'll know ahead of time that they'll at least give us a week notice that the fund's running out.
So we can stop.
Right, so we can advertise and let families know, hey, guess what, the funds of the program ran out, therefore we're back to our paid program. So we'll communicate that as quickly as the information comes to us.
thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Taylor?
Pam, do you have others besides the school lunch fund that you want to talk about? Is there others?
I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of, state schools grant, we have filed that reimbursement, it has been approved, so we're just waiting for the
And part of that was like timing on that is that we had to go in and change. I got an email the middle of last week and we had to go in and make an edit to that, to the physical program of it, because they have to make sure that it's an exact match to match. We overmatched our number and they want an exact penny to penny match. So we had to go in and edit that. So that kind of has delayed it a few days as well. Are there other questions for Pam on the fund report?
The other stimulus funds, 7944,
7944. Let me look.
it's 82,000.
That's where we're collecting all of us that we're going to submit to FEMA for reimbursement.
Yeah, what we're hoping to do that kind of goes along with the CARES Act funds and for FEMA. So what we're trying to do is we applied for a FEMA reimbursement because some of the hard supply costs we can get through FEMA versus using our CARES grant money. So if we can do that, it'll free up our CARES grant money that we won't have to utilize. So we're trying to get it all at one time to be able to submit that. So that's the reason for that.
Anything else, Pam? Any other questions? All right, we're gonna move on to approval of the claims. I need a motion.
Motion.
Kevin Mawan makes a motion. Mark Kaniga makes a second. Mr. Gailey,
Questions for Pam or I on any of the claims?
All right. So if no questions, all those in favor of approval of the claims? Kevin Long,
Aye.
Brian Jansen,
Yeah.
Mark Kniga,
Yes.
Bob Miller,
Yes.
his name, and myself, yes. So 6-0. Mr. Rybold is absent. All right. Next, review of the 2021 draft budget and approval to advertise. Mr. Gailey, Ms. Taylor,
We want to get a motion on the second first.
can I get a motion, please? Ms. Phelan Mans
Brian Campbell, second.
and Brian Jansen.
Included in your packet, you have a packet put together by Mrs. Taylor, and I want to thank Mrs. Taylor for her time invested in this, because it does take time to put the entire budget together. So thank you, Mrs. Taylor, for the time. With that, you also have at the very beginning a summary sheet where she shows a comparison of the 2021 budget compared to this past year's 2020 budget. So you can see what was proposed in 2020, what we actually are receiving in the budget and the levy, and then in rates, and then you can see what we are anticipating for 2021 as a comparison to those numbers. Then it goes through and you can see every single fund is listed there in the budget forms. So you have budget form 1, 2, and as it continues through, you can also have the transportation bus replacement plan for 2021 through 2025, as well as the capital projects replacement plans in there as well. We'll note, if you look at the bus replacement plan, you will see that starting in 2022 is when we will start cycling back through replacement of buses. So it's been 11 years that we've owned buses, and after 12 years, you'll start to replace those buses then. So you can kind of see which buses will be replaced, what years. We'll start replacing them 2 and 3 buses each year, going back through that cycle then. But I wanted questions that you have. Really, this is to kind of go through, share with you the draft budget, and then get permission to advertise for it. And then September 28th, that Monday, is that special meeting that we have at 5:30, and that's when we will have a hearing on this budget for the public to make comments.
Mr. Kniga, you have a question?
A couple of questions, Mr. Taylor and Pam. We lost $116 million in AV, is that correct?
Now, these are estimates. Now, if you look there, it's an estimate that she has. She's always going to make sure that the AV, she pulls back on that AV, because you want to pull back on that AV so that you make sure that we're able to capture everything. Because if we're off, we'd rather be conservative on that AV than project out what it potentially would be. So that's really, sorry to interrupt you. So Pam, I think you always estimate that at 85%, correct?
That is correct, it's 85% of what last year's was.
So she always will estimate 85% of the previous year. That way we're conservative in that number, hoping and thinking that it's going to be bigger. That way then it gives us that range.
So she took 85% of the.
Can someone repeat what he asked?
Sure, he asked, the question was asked that when you're looking at the rate comparison sheet and you're looking at the AV, you can see it says $659 million in estimated AV for 2021. But when you look right below that, it says $775 million AV for 2020. When Pam's building the budget, she always uses 85% of the previous year, meaning 2020's budget. So really, if you take 85% of that $775 million, that's how you get the $659 million there.
Okay, great. Yeah, she explained that to me. I just didn't know what the question was. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just to show a conservative number there to make sure we capture everything.
Great, thanks.
Any other
Then we got
questions?
another question.
So the other question is, 2020, the actual budget was $26,225,000, and the likely this year is $225,900, basically $300,000 less. So that will bump up accordingly based upon the actual AV.
Right, so his question is, when you're looking at the proposed budgets and the actual budgets for 2020 and 2021, you can see what the proposed budget was of $27 million, and and we ended up being just shy of that 26.2 million. And then for 2021, you can see we're requesting 26.5 million, and probably we're looking at probably getting the likelihood of around 25.9, just under probably 26 million right there.
So there's 300,000 less next year than this year.
Potentially,
Potentially.
yes,
Okay. I just want to make sure I was clear with that.
yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
So what you're doing is you would be voting to be able to give approval to now be able to advertise this budget for the special hearing that we'll have on September 28th.
Kevin Millan,
Yes.
Brian Jansen,
Yeah.
Mark Kniga,
Yes.
Bob Miller,
Yes.
Kayla Nancy,
Yes.
myself, yes, 6-0.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pam. Moving on to routine business. Minutes for approval, August 10th, 2020, regular session minutes is presented. Can I get a motion, please?
So,
Mark Kniga.
Who did you get to do first?
Mark Kniga.
Okay.
And second, Bob Miller. All right, anybody have any additions or changes they'd like to discuss? If not, all those in favor, Kevin Millan,
Yes.
Brian Jansen,
Yeah.
Fela,
Yes.
Bob Miller,
Yes.
Mark, myself, 6-0. All right, moving on, personnel items, employment, can I get a motion, please? Brian Jansen. Second, Kevin Millan,
Yes.
Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have recommendations for new hires. You have Brittany Moritz, CES second shift custodian, effective hire date 8/17. Evelyn McAndrew, bus 9 p.m. bus aide, 8/25. Kendra Jenkins, CES second shift custodian, 9/8. Anna Baker, LHS third shift custodian, 8/31. Jacob Weedoff, LPS DLI instructional aide, 8/17. Jackie Reynolds, GMS mentor for Travis Barracks for the 2021 school year. Melissa Tedesco, LHS assistant academic team coach for 2021 school year. Josh Herbert, LHS mentor to DeMarco Henry for the 2021 school year. Vicki Mills, LHS tech integration specialist, and Heidi Frost, LHS tech integration specialist for the 2021 school year. Nastasha Gilmore, LPS mentor to Courtney Milan for the 2021 school year. Gail Stafford, GMS mentor to Tori Zeke for the 2021 school year. Hannah Lester, bus 8 driver, 8/31. David Shealy, LHS head wrestling coach for the 2021 school year. I recommend those for employment.
Thank you, Mr. Gailey. Any questions regarding employment? All right, all those in favor? Kevin Millan,
Yes.
Brian Jansen,
Yeah.
Mark Kniga,
Yes.
Ms. Nance,
Yes.
Bob Miller,
Yes.
myself, yes, 6-0. Thank you. Next would be resignations, and this is informational only. Mr. Gailey.
I've received 2 resignations. I have Deanna McAtee, LPS kindergarten instructional aide, 8/12. Melissa Wiley, LPS 5-hour cafeteria worker, 8/20. Informational items.
Questions? All right, moving on to transfers, also informational.
Have 1 transfer informational is Misty Weiss, transfer from job share 3-hour LPS LHS position to LPS 5-hour cafeteria worker on 8/24.
Questions? If not, we're gonna move on to professional travel. This is also informational only. Do we have any questions regarding travel presented? All right. All right, thank you. Moving on. We're gonna go on to field trips. Can I get a motion, please? Ms. Phelan Nance. Second, Kevin Millan. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, you have 1 virtual field trip. That's for the first grade in Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame, 9/29 and 10/1. They split the first graders up when they do that. So that is a virtual field trip.
All right. Any questions on the virtual field trip? If not, all those in favor? Start with Brian Jansen. Kevin Millan,
Yes.
Ms. Nance,
Yes.
Bob Miller,
Yes.
Mark Canega.
Yes.
Myself is yes, 6-0. Moving on to fundraisers. Mr. Gailey, can I get a motion?
Right here.
Second, Mark Canega. Mr. Gailey, now.
Included in your packet, you have some fundraisers. Recommend student council coin drive for Riley Hospital on 9/11. Tiger Pizzazz sell items and arts in the park on 9/13. LHS Student Council Pep Club t-shirts 9/16. Yearbook Committee selling yearbook t-shirts 9/21 to 10/2. Tiger Pizzazz Chipotle Restaurant Night on 9/30. LHS Boys Basketball Youth Basketball League from October through December of 2020. LHS Student Council Chipotle Restaurant Night on 10/13. LHS Boys Basketball to sell Christmas wreaths October and November of 2020. I recommend those for approval.
Questions?
The student council get a lot of coins, they give them back in circulation.
There you go. In this corner, so it's for the chair. All right, all those in favor? Mr. Jansen,
Yeah.
Mr. Millan,
Yes.
Mr. Canega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Nance,
Yes.
myself, yes, 6-0.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to new business. Approval of resolution approving form of lease. Can I get a motion, please?
Come on.
Mr. Miller, second. Mr. Millan, Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, and I apologize for adding this today, these were two that help continue our projects to move forward. The first is a resolution approving the form of lease. The school corporation is funding these projects through a lease financing, as is done with other past construction or renovation projects. Lease financing are used by school corporations across Indiana in order to borrow for renovation and construction. This type of financing does not count against the school corporation's constitutional debt allowance. The building corporation will purchase a portion of the high school building at the closing for at least the appraisal value. The building corporation will then lease that portion of the building back to the school corporation. The school corporation will use the purchase price to do the work at other buildings. The lease rental due from the school corporation will be paid from property taxes. The lease rental, as shown as a maximum amount in the lease, will be sufficient to pay the principal and interest due to the bondholders. I recommend approval of Exhibit A, resolution approving the form of lease. I can read the entire resolution if you would like. You have it in your packet.
I don't think that's necessary. Any questions from Mr. Gailey? All right, we'll move on to a vote. Mr. Millan,
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yeah.
Mr. Canega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Nance.
Yes.
Myself, yes, 6-0. Moving on, approval of resolution reapproving the building corporation. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Canega, a second.
Yeah, come on, second.
Kevin Millan, second. Mr. Gailey.
In your packet, you have Exhibit B, which is a resolution reapproving the building corporation. In this, in order for the building corporation, a not-for-profit Indiana corporation, to issue tax-exempt bonds, the IRS requires that the school board approve the building corporation and authorize it to issue tax-exempt bonds on behalf of the school corporation. So it is reapproving the building corporation. This building corporation will be the same building corporation that we used for the new gym project. I have already spoken to the three gentlemen that represent that building corporation, and they agreed to continue to be a part of this new project.
Any questions from Mr. Gailey?
Did you read into record who those three are, please?
Yes, the three representatives that are part of the building corporation, they are Tom Palmer, they are Kip Newman, and Casey Nance. So they are currently our building corporation representatives for the new gym project when we had it. There is still, I believe, around 5 years left on that, but then they will continue into this new project.
Moving on to a vote. Mr. Millan,
Yes.
Mr. Jansen,
Yeah.
Mr. Kniga?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Nance?
Yes.
Myself, yes. 6-0. Thank you.
Also included, before we move on, kind of tying those all together with those resolutions, in your packet, I put a separate little folder that's in there. It says Ice Miller. We added that in. You'll see it has updated timelines in there, but it also has included in there are some publications that we need to publish. So I wanted to make you aware that if you want to see what those publications are that we'll be sending over to the newspaper tomorrow, that you can see what those publications are inside that folder. So I just wanted to make you aware of those in case you see those coming up in the paper over the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Gala. Next, we're going to move on to approval of additional service request by Lancer plus BB LLC. Can I get a motion, please?
Kevin Long.
Ms. Phelan Nance, second.
Kevin Long.
Brian Jansen. Mr. Gala, could you,
Sure. Included in your packet, I've had communication with Terry Lancer with Lancer plus BB. They're the architects of record at this time for our renovations and building projects. And due to the need for us to increase the cost of the high school project and some of the others by $4.3 million, then they're requesting, and most of that is because of MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing changes that we've made at the high school and are going to replace a number of items. Then he's requested additional fees to be able to compensate those workers that are performing the service for the MEP services. The amount that he has requested an increase is for $248,094. I do want to note also, I'll note also of that. So that was, he had a broke down that I shared in your packets showing the fee structure, that the fee is at the same percentage as the original project cost. So it's in line with that same percentage. And then he did take off then $13,000 off of that. I did have a conversation with him this week and asked if there was any way to sharpen that pencil a little bit more. And he contacted me back at the end of the week, and he said that he would be willing to reduce it another 5%, which is another $13,057.60. So we would be able to subtract that off of the $248,094. We can actually subtract then $13,057.60 from there.
thank you. Mr. Kniga?
Yeah, Mr. Daly, I talked to you a little bit about this before the meeting. And I read the.
I'll repeat to you.
And I read what Mr. Weldon reviewed it, and I understand the percentages and all that, but a lot of it goes back to we're proposing a third summer of work. And I'll be honest with you, I still got a little.
This is Lancer. This is just Lancer BB.
Yeah, but they're tied together because it's the next one on. So I'm mixing.
You're bunching them up with Maxwell as well.
It's the same thing. Still have a little heartburn the way this thing went down. You know, this is substantial. I think it's $5 or $6 million. Now we're being asked for another $750 million. I fully understand the percentage concepts and all that, but I would like to challenge Lancer, BB, and Maxwell to get this done in 2 years. You know, a lot of this would be remobilization. I mean, Ryan, you're Ryan, right?
Yes, correct.
I mean, you leave the job, you come back, there's a cost associated with demobilizing, remobilizing. If we could get this done, even if it means running 2 crews in the summer, you know, the corporation spent a lot of money, and for some reason, we're always the one writing the checks. I'm not blaming you, but I would ask and challenge both those entities to sharpen their pencil up and figure a way to get this done in 2 summers rather than dragging it out into the third. Because you're going to have on-site people for the third year, you have wage increases, you have material increases, it's going to also be reflected in the bids. I see a potential some value added services here, so I'm going to challenge you guys to do.
Right, and I know in the conversation, like I said, so that's what Terry Lancer BB conversations, moving on, I know we haven't got to the next
Why
one.
don't we get to the next one, and then we'll talk about that as well. So this is for Lancer plus BB LLC. You good on questions like that?
So the,
Okay.
right, the explanation you had. I do want to kind of note for the record, then I just went ahead and subtracted the $13,057.60. So the new amount would be $235,036.40. $235,036.036.40.
Okay.
So that's why I just want to share, so that was on record of what that new price would be.
All right, so all those in favor of approval of the additional services request by Lancer plus BB LLC? We're going to go ahead and take a vote on that at this point. Ms. Nance?
Yeah.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Kniga?
Yes.
Mr. Milan?
Yes.
Mr. Jansen?
Yeah.
And myself, 6-0. Moving on. Approval of additional fees request by Maxwell Construction. I'd like a motion, please, for this.
Kevin Vaughn.
Kevin Milan, second. Phelan Nance. All right. With us tonight, we have Ryan Strugman with Maxwell Construction. If we have any questions, I'm sure Ryan would be the man to answer. Mr. Gailey, if you would like to please go on with your explanation.
Sure. So to provide a little explanation, kind of going along with Mr. Kniga's kind of question a little bit and challenge to them, I want to share, I did have a conversation with Jeff Linus with Maxwell, and had the conversation the same way, saying, hey, could we sharpen the pencil? Could we talk a little bit about this? Their concern that they have right now is exactly what you kind of brought up and alluded to, is because the project's been pushed back some now for a few months, it's not going to get started until late spring, early summer next year. So their fear is that when bids come in, say around April, they're not going to have enough time to order a number of the big items that they would need to replace MEP wise in the high school to get them in the summer for that first summer. So they're concerned that it could lead to the potential of needing 3 summers to get it completed. We did have the conversation. He says that's where his fear is right now. Is there the chance it could be, as you're challenging them, that they won't need that 3rd summer? It could fall. It's that way. And Jeff shared with me that he'd be willing to come back to the table at that time if the 3rd summer is not needed, to have then further discussions with that. They're just concerned right now when things have been pushed back, and we were at 2.5 kind of right now. They're afraid now they may have to use that 3rd summer. That's his fear right now.
So his biggest fear is lead time on materials.
At the beginning, that's what his, at the beginning part of it, because bids potentially coming in April to May and then getting us to get them approved, he's worried that lead time to get some of those large items, to get them here for the summer, for that first summer.
So I'm going to throw this out.
Which doesn't mean that it can't happen the second summer.
I would hope by now that Lancer BB and his team have an idea of what we're going to be buying, that if those orders could be placed now to expedite that. I mean, it's very commonly done. Brian, I mean, thoughts on that?
At this point in time, we're really still in the schematic design phase. They're still uncovering a lot of details, still determining exactly what is going to be replaced and what can be cut onto and repurposed. So to say now we can put any orders in, we're very far away from that.
Well, it's September and we're waiting till April or May. I mean, tell me we're not going to have something here in the next 2 or 3 months where things could be ordered.
In November is when design development drawings will be available.
95%.
What's that?
95% I think December and 100% January.
100%.
Yeah, the schedule I've got right here, he shared.
Ryan, do you mind coming to the podium, please?
He shared currently right now, the schedule that Terry has shared with them on that. They're looking at November 2nd, DD due, January 11th, 90% CD due, January 25th, 100% CD due. So that's the time schedule right now they provided.
So by the end of January, we'll have the drawings for all 4 buildings, all 4 schools. we'll be able to finalize our bid packages, advertise for bids, and then be able to collect them over those next 6-8 weeks timeframe.
But like I said earlier, I'm just gonna challenge you guys, because I think there's a way to get around it to save the corporation some money.
Understood, point taken. We will definitely keep that in mind as we work through these next few phases over the next couple of months and come back with an updated schedule.
And they're well, like I said, he had a conversation with, if they could try to get it, that without that third summer, they'll see what they can do.
The thing is, we want a quality project and one on time, and safely done. So
Understood.
thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here tonight, Ryan.
All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor? Ms. Nance? Bob Miller? Mark Kniga?
Yes.
Kevin Millan?
Yes.
Brian Jansen?
Yeah.
And myself, 6-0.
To share kind of then a summary to the entire board, the goal now, and I know Dell's on the line too, the goal is now that these numbers are solidified, he's gonna take these numbers, put them into the finalized language of the contracts. The goal is to have those to us at our special September 28th meeting for us to approve all the finalized contracts with language and numbers that have been approved by both sides. So that's what the goal is, now having these numbers to allow them. Both, the language has pretty much already been agreed upon by both parties. It just has to be put into finalized form. And then we've talked about bringing it back here so that you guys can see that in final form. So we will have that September 28th. Correct, Del?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm gonna talk to Ryan and James, just make sure we make all the adjustments to all the different contracts for the architect and the construction manager.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Ryan, thanks for
Thank you,
joining us.
guys.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right. Moving on. Approval to send school-based services grant request to the endowment with a favorable recommendation. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Kniga. Second, Brian Jansen. Mr. Gailey.
Included in your packet, this is a yearly grant request to the school endowment. And this is for school-based services for community mental health center partnership that we have, that they provide us a mental health provider at the high school that also helps at the middle school as well. And currently right now, it's less that we do have other CMHC workers at the elementary. So it's to provide mental health services throughout the corporation.
Any other questions for Mr. Gailey? All right. Mr. Kniga. Yes. Mr. Milan.
Yes.
Mr. Jansen.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Nance.
Abstain.
And myself would be yes. So the vote would be 5-0-1 with Ms. Nance abstaining because she is part of the endowment. Thank you. Moving on, approved to declare smart board asset number ACS A00373815 and a broken projector asset number A00214-011 obsolete and permission to dispose. Can I get a motion, please? Ms. Phelan Nance. Second, Bob Miller.
They do not work.
Got any more questions there, Mr. Milan?
No, I'm not gonna say anything about that one.
All right, thank you. All those in favor, Mr. Kniga?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Nance?
Yes.
Mr. Milan?
Yes.
Mr. Jansen?
Yeah.
Myself, 6-0. Next, discuss the crossings at Tanner Creek, question and answer from Greendale Redevelopment Commission, informational only. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gailey, but we do have some folks in attendance. Mr. Grant Hughes, Mr. Case Kniga, Robert Abner, and I believe that is it. Mr. Gailey.
Wanted to share at the end of last week, I received an email from Mr. Abden from Greendale Redevelopment Commission with some of the questions that have been posed and put together and shared with them. And those came back. I emailed those out to you guys, and then was able today to add this agenda item on as an informational item. I know you just received it. I don't know if any of you had time over the weekend to be able to read through it, but I wanted to try and get it to you as quickly as possible so you had as much time to be able to go through it and kind of formulate any additional clarifying questions that you may need. What I kind of had shared in my memo to you guys also as part of the board packet, my assumption, but you guys can change that. My assumption was you would want this next month, since we just received it Friday, to be able to have this next month to review it. And then I'll put it on the agenda for next month for potential consideration of support or opposition of the project. I don't know some of the clarifying things that I would still want, but obviously you guys would need to say if you need this. I guess what I would still potentially want from the school corporation would be kind of the finalized what's going to be in that hotel, like the properties, knowing is it just going to be this property? Are there going to be other properties that are part of it? So I think before the board, but I don't want to speak for you guys, but I would think they would want to know before they make a vote, what is that finalized HOTIF going to look like? And then the second question would be is kind of what is that final number, that agreement, and what that would be. I know it's been around 1.7 billion. It's been that request in that. And then the only, I don't know if it's really, it's more of a, I guess, an entire GRC board question is would there be any consideration of rather than a 20-year TIF of, I think the question, one of the questions we had asked was how many years would it take to recover 1.7 billion? And it came back at 9.5 to 10 years. And the question would be, would there be a consideration of just a 10-year TIF versus a 20-year TIF then on that? That way it would allow then the corporation to start capturing some of those then revenues coming in quicker than 10 extra years. So those would be, I guess those will be some of the clarifying questions I would like to see for the corporation. I don't know if you guys want to send me anything that if you have, or if you've had a chance to look at them.
Carl, you and I talked, and those are basically the 3 or 4 key points. And I don't think there's anybody on this board that's against that. And I've shared that, I think, with you, Alan, you, Casey. It's just we need to know what we're getting into here, because we're talking something that's going to take this corporation 10 to 20 years to go through. So if we can get those answers, I'm sure we can figure out what's going on as far as.
So for those that are online, Mark had made a comment and asked a question that he said he had kind of shared with them that kind of there's support there, but we still need those clarifying kind of answers to those questions before a vote would take place by the school board and a decision would be made. So that's what Mark had just shared with them. Do you guys online have any clarifying questions or things that you need, or do you want to kind of get with me if there's something that you want from Greendale?
Kevin?
No, I mean, I've read everything. I mean, you know, I read the emails going back and forth. Now, you know, I don't have a lot of questions for you. You know, first step, I think the board will probably want a little bit more time to look at everything. That's my personal opinion, but it's up to the rest of you guys. If you guys want to vote on anything tonight or take a look at anything, let me know.
I think we still need to discuss it, but getting back to that, I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about their timeline here, and what we could possibly do is we do have that meeting coming up, the special on the
September 28th.
of the month. So what we could do is instead of waiting until October, we could possibly go ahead and have some discussion, set some time aside during that special meeting, and actually that'll give us time to kind of go through the email, because I've skimmed through it. I didn't dissect it because it was, you know, we got a late Friday afternoon, and I'm not sure about the rest of the board, so I'm not speaking for everybody but myself. I would feel more comfortable if we could maybe take a couple weeks to read it, talk to Carl, and then if we got any other questions, and then have maybe a better discussion on it on the 28th.
Fine with that. I can add that as an agenda item.
Mr. Milano, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Just one question. Do you think maybe we
can see if we can get Mike McLaughlin and maybe Al there at that meeting. So if we have questions, we can ask them.
Yep. And Al's sitting here shaking his head yes, so, you know, I'm sure he'll reach out to Mr. McLaughlin about that.
See if they can work for them, and let's try to put this thing to rest.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why I said we'll move it to the 28th and we'll go.
Yep, thank you, I appreciate
Does that
it.
work for you guys then?
Mr. James, you got anything or you good? 28th? Okay. All the other board members, they agree, you know, move on to the 28th and we'll have some discussions about it.
Agenda. Yep.
Sounds
Does that
good,
work for
gentlemen,
guys?
thank
We'll
you.
get it
for
added to our
coming.
28th agenda.
That way we don't have to wait a whole other month.
Come up with any other questions between now and then?
I'll get them to you as quick as they come into me. I'll get them to you.
You shoot them off to me and I'll just get you an email back with more clarification than what's included in the question and answer.
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open this up to citizen participation. I don't believe there's anybody in the audience that really has any questions. Mr. Gailey, how many people do we have following? Any?
There are 5 that are watching. Do you see, I don't see any comments or questions. For some reason, my box doesn't come up. Are you seeing anything back there for comments?
So,
No questions or comments? Okay.
I'll check back with you one more time before we move on, but we'll go ahead and move on to principal comments. I'm going to start with Ms. Herbert. Hello, Ms. Herbert. All right, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and,
There she is.
she
She's unmuted.
Sorry,
That's
I
all
was
right.
trying to get it unmuted. I was not napping.
No worries.
It went out of order, I wasn't expecting it. So I just wanted to say that the students at CMS have really had a great couple of weeks. Last week we did Spirit Days in recognition of the high school's homecoming, so that was really fun. We had midterms recently. To go back to something Mr. Gailey brought up earlier, the kids seem really excited about the free breakfast. We're working on the lunch, but they're definitely excited about the breakfast. We have had meetings over the last 2 weeks. We've been working with families who are virtual but not meeting necessarily the expectations of what needs to be done to be successful. So we've had meetings, some of the students have returned to GMS, and some of them we've just put improvement plans in place. I really want to take the time to recognize the teachers for all the work that they're doing, but also the parents and the students, because they have been really flexible throughout this entire process. And the kids have done a great job of following all of our requirements. And as Mr. Snyder mentioned earlier, kind of going with the flow when we make last minute changes. So we really appreciate that. One positive that has transitioned here at CMS, we're lucky that all of our teachers, we don't have this virtual. So our students, even if they're just sick for the day, but they're able to log in, they can still attend their classes virtually, and they've done a great job. Many of them have attended that way, so that's been a positive of the optional virtual. And then just to let you know, this is Digital Citizenship Week, and we are kicking off some things in study skills to work with digital citizenship. Any questions for GMS?
I think we're good, Jamie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to Mr. Snyder, please.
I can't say enough about our students and teachers. I know people keep applauding them also in the community. It's been exceptional as far as the educational part of it. Sometimes I get a little annoyed with our attitude towards extracurriculars and people not being as understanding when it comes to that, but we're dealing with that and it's going to get better. But I do want to applaud our students for listening, caring, being involved. Teachers, I want to reach out to them because I think sometimes we take the idea for granted when you're working with in-person students and you have more students on the line, virtual with Google Meets than Meet CI. It's not been out of the ordinary for us to have as many as over 250 students on virtual one way or the other, either through Plato or Google Meets. That's a large number. We've had a trend where students want to come back, and I've been impressed how they've been able to do that and not miss anything because they've been committed to the Google Meet. So that plan did work very well, where a student on Google Meets can come right back into the classroom. And of course, we're allowing that, so we're excited about that. And that means they come back full time. So that's what they've been asking for. So we've had more and more students asking to come back full time, and they are doing it. I also wanted to mention that we're in the middle of an early college re-endorsement. Quite a process. Our guidance department's working on it along with Ms. O'Neill, and trying to get that coordinated so that once again we are endorsed through CEL, which is the head of it in the whole state of Indiana. So we're very anxious to get that finished, and that's another thing. It has to be finished by the end of October or end of September. Also, we got College Go Week. Our guidance department is planning for that next week. We're excited. We got some activities, got some fun giveaways, some things that we're excited about. Once again, to bring up the idea of careers and college all rolled into one. And of course, sports teams are doing quite well. We've got sectionals coming up already in some sports like girls golf, and then we got tennis coming up. Cross country, then of course we turn around and we've got other, believe it or not, ending sectional talk already with some of the other sports that will be coming up when we get closer to fall break. So everything's going very well. We're very happy with the way things are going and adjustments we're making during these times. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Snyder? All right, moving on to Ms. Gregory.
Hello, how's everybody tonight?
Good.
We're good. We're excited. We were able to recognize our very first month of August award winners. A little bit, see those pictures on our social media that we recognize students for math masters, rocket readers, awesome authors, and principals pride. And we're excited for our e-learning day this Wednesday, as we have a jam-packed day planned with lots of opportunities to enhance our staff's skills and knowledge. Picture Day is coming up on September 23rd, as well as our PTO walk-a-thon this year. We're excited. Our first graders are going to be, with your approval tonight, going to be having a virtual field trip before we go on fall break, and they'll do their the Reds Hall of Fame, just a different twist this year to that. Everyone's working really hard on reading and math to develop and improve our skills. Over the last couple summers, we've had several of our teachers trained in Fort Gillingham, and we're really utilizing that in K-1 to work on that phonics instruction. And as Mr. Snyder and Mr. Herbert had said, I just can't commend the staff and the students for they're just doing so well with all the extra precautions and things that we're doing to keep everybody healthy and safe and in school. It's just amazing. So we'll just keep working hard at LPS and excited to see where the year takes us.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. Any questions for Ms. Gregory? All right, you have a good evening. Thank you. Next up, Ms. Spade.
Hi, good evening. First, I just can't thank our staff and students for being so diligent. I was out in a meeting in the community today and came back kind of flabbergasted by not everybody wearing masks. And I think if there's one thing, the mask wearing, the sanitizing, the hand cleaning is just spot on in our school corporation. And I think that is from our building level leaders and our teachers for helping implement that. But in other news, professional development, like Mrs. Gregory together in a social distanced way to cover building level topics, take care of necessary state training such as test security and integrity, incorporate some broad professional development, and then also to allow time for Mr. Gailey and I to have some Google Meet meetings with the staff to kind of launch some of our initiatives that we have in terms of cultural awareness and social emotional learning. So thank you again for that time, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ms. Faith. All right, Mr. Gailey, I know Ms. Kaniga wasn't able to be in attendance tonight, so she sent some information with you.
She did. She provided a school board update. Since last school board meeting, we have done Ames web testing. We're looking forward to our eLearn day next week, which is actually this Wednesday, so they can analyze the results and plan instruction to help those students in need. The PTO is having a walk-a-thon as well as a spiritware sale currently. CES is proud of their students and staff and their daily efforts to stay healthy as well as learn and master standards. And then can I go ahead and keep going on for my list?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Quickly.
Want to thank, again, as you heard from all of our principals and Mrs. Spade, that I can't commend our staff and students enough that the cleaning, the hand sanitizing, the wearing of masks, of complying with those rules, that I thank them. The only way that we're going to be able to continue to have each week, longer weeks, more months in school in person is by following the rules, complying by them. It'll extend our time in our school year. Some things coming up, just want to remind again, as you guys heard the announcement, free breakfast and lunch through the USDA program until either December 18th or the funds run out. This Wednesday, we have an e-learning day. This Friday is our ADM, which is our average daily membership. It's our count day. So this is where our funding counts based upon our student numbers. So if you know kids that are out there in the community and they haven't enrolled in school, get them here, or if they're somewhere else and they want to come to Lawrenceburg, get them here by Friday. Yes.
To do that for virtual kids.
They still count. So the state, when they turn around, because it was based upon, there's a statute that says you only get 85% funding for those kids. But what happened was the governor turned around and asked the State Board of Ed to make a rule change. So last week, the State Board of Ed made a rule change, which changed the statute to allow us to get 100% funding for those kids. So they still have to be reported that way, and they have to be tracked all year that way for data purposes, but we will get 100% funding for them. So Friday's our ADM count day. Monday, 9/28, don't forget our special board meeting. That's our public hearing for the 2021 budget. That'll be here. It'll start at 5:30. So 5:30 is what we've got advertised. So 5:30 here, this will be that meeting on the 28th. Then on 10/1, we have a partnership with the Dearborn County Health Department, and we're going to provide a voluntary flu clinics at the schools. We've sent them forms to all of our families, and if families want to sign up for flu shots for their kids, Dearborn County Health Department will be at all of our schools on 10/1, which is Thursday, right before fall break. They'll be here giving flu shots to kids. They got to bring the form back for that. 10/2 through 10/9, so that Friday through the following week is our fall break. So just a reminder, fall break, 10/2 to 10/9. Also on 10/2, if you haven't heard, old State Route 48 will be closed between the Riviera condominiums to Heiner Heights. It'll be closed. It's going to be closed for about a year. You will not be able to get through Old 48 for about a year. Between that, there's some road slippage, and they've got to do some work in those areas. So those were some things I wanted to announce. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Gailey. I'm going to start with our board comments. We'll start with Mr. Milan.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank Phelan Nance for volunteering to be the ISBA delegate for the Lawrenceburg School Corporation. And other than that, just administrators doing a great job. Keep it up. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Milan. Moving on, Mr. Jansen.
No comment.
Mr. Kaniga. Ms. Nance.
You all probably saw it on Facebook, but I thought it was so cute. It said we have to be extra patient with the teachers because not only are they flying the plane, they're building it. And I think that's so appropriate this year.
Very good. Mr. Miller, no comment. And myself, thanks to all the administrators for all the work they do, all the teachers and all the kids for putting in the work too. So thank you all for coming, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us online.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
You too.
Yes.
There we go.
Hey,
We're
Kevin,
good.
turn your mic
Was there
on.
anything, any questions or comments?
There you go.
Thank you.